Hey, let's get started. In this video, I'm going to be showing the Sony 70-350 lens versus the Tamron 18-300 lens. And as you can see, they are both not zoomed out, and the Tamron is just a tad bit shorter. And on the Sony, as you can see, I have a collar ring on. That does not come with the lens. I ordered that separately. Now when they're zoomed out, the Tamron ends up being a little bit taller than the Sony. Now throughout this video, I'm going to be shooting a lot of pictures. I have two a6700 cameras, and each lens is going to be on one of the cameras. I'll be standing in one spot, shooting the same pictures with both lenses. I'll be shooting them a lot in the 300mm range, trying to get both of them in that range. I'll be shooting some with the Sony at 350, and then some with the Sony at 70mm for the wide end, and some with the Tamron at the 18mm wide end, so you can see a difference. Then we're going to also be getting into some video, and we'll be using the clear image zoom feature so you can see how much exactly zoom you get in each one of these lenses when you're using the clear image zoom. And I tell you, I really like the clear image zoom. That's working out really well for me. Now let's see how much they weigh. Put it on the scale, the Tamron first. 1 pound, 7 ounces, 0.25. Well, then it's jumping to 30 on my scale. Well, jump back to 25. Let's see how much this Sony weighs. The 70-350, put it on. 1 pound, 7 ounces, 0.30. At least on my scale, they both weigh the same. Now some video from each lens shot at the zoom end, starting with the Sony at 350mm. This is a little show that was in a park downtown in my area. This is the Sony 70-350, shot at 350mm. Doesn't look bad. Next, we're going to move into the Tamron 18-300, and here's the Tamron 18-300 at 300mm. You can see they both have a little bit different color look to them, and you can see that extra 50mm of zoom from the 350 gives you a little bit more range in there. It's not a big difference, not as much as I was hoping for. And here they are side by side, so you can see the Sony at 350mm and the Tamron at 300mm, so you can see side by side what the difference in that extra 50mm of zoom is. Is that what you want? And here we go with another clip. Now this is with the Sony, and I'm zooming back out to 70mm, so you can see how wide we can zoom here. I'm going to zoom back in, using the wrong focus system. I'm using wide on this. I should have been using zone. So sometimes it's going to jump in and out of focus a little bit when I zoom out. We're going to do the same with the Tamron next. And here's the Tamron. You can see it goes out right away, because on wide focus, it's starting to focus on the crowd. Boy, look at that. Look at that zoom range. Now here, it's focusing what it looks like on the people's heads right in front of the camera here, with that focus, with wide focus set on. And I'm going to zoom back in slowly. There's no smoothness about either one of these lenses turning the lens. You can see it's starting to focus on the crowd's heads here until I get past them. Then it locks back in. Okay, now we're going to get into shooting some photos. And I'm shooting a video of myself standing back there, and that's the distance I'm going to be shooting. I'm going to be shooting right at the camera. Also, stay tuned to the end of the video, because I've got some special band video footage that I shot at a festival using the lens that I'm keeping. One of these lenses is being sent back. Can you guess which one I'm going to keep? Maybe not yet. First off, here's the Sony at 302mm, I think it is. And here's the Tamron at 300mm. Now I'm going to show one from the Sony at 350. A little bit more zoom there. And I'm going to put them all side by side. And it looks like the Sony at the 302mm. I couldn't get it at 300. It's always at 302 or 199. Looks maybe a little bit better background blur, but not by much. Sharpness wise, all three look fantastic in these pictures. One's not sharper than another. Now here's the Sony at 70mm. focused right on the little camera there. That's the Insta360 camera. And here's the Tamron at 18mm, focused on the little Insta360 camera. And here it is side by side. Both of them are equally as sharp. I don't think one is any sharper than the other. Now here's some random photos of things, a boat in the distance from the Sony first. And next we have the Tamron. To me, the Tamron looks slightly sharper, and I think it has a little bit better contrast. Now a sign here from the Sony. Nice background blur a little bit there. And then the Tamron. Maybe not as smooth in the background, but not bad at all. Another one from the Sony. Nice and sharp. And then we have another one from the Tamron. Also nice and sharp. Backgrounds are a little bit different on them, but very similar. And here's another one from the Sony. And we're going to go to the Tamron next, right here, Tamron. They look so much alike, it's hard to even tell one from the other. And now here's the Sony at 350mm. Just a little bit of zoom. It's not a big amount. Now here's 100mm on the Sony. You see they both have a slightly different color look to them. And here's the Tamron at 100mm. I think the Tamron is a little bit warmer. The Sony is a little bit cooler. And here on the Sony at 350, it's not quite as sharp. I keep noticing that. Now here's the Tamron at 300, which is sharper. I've noticed that a few times on the Sony, not being as sharp at 350. So you can see them side by side. You can see it's just not quite as crisp sharp as the Tamron, but you do have that 50mm extra zoom range. Okay, now I've moved to a different location. We'll be shooting some more here. And first off, we have the Sony. This is at 70mm, so you can see what 70mm looks like versus the 18mm, wow, from the Tamron. So if you're traveling, the Tamron is going to get you a lot more pictures in those wide angles. Now I'm going to shoot the grill here of this truck with both lenses. I'm going to try to get it at the 300mm range. I think it's going to be 302 on the Sony. And then of course it will be the full 300mm on the Tamron. Very close, not a whole lot of difference between the two, just a little slight different color. Now here I'm going to shoot another wide shot at the wide ends. And we're going to start with the Sony at 70mm. That's what you would get. And then standing in the same exact spot, switching cameras. On the Tamron, here's 18mm. Now, of course, I can zoom in and get the same with the Tamron as well. Now, here's a couple more pictures. The Sony, probably around 199 or 302. And the Tamron, they're very similar, just a slight warmer look on the Tamron. Similar sharpness. Now here's the Sony, and now on this I think the Tamron really shows a little bit more sharpness. Here it comes. And here's the Tamron, a little bit slight warmer, and I do think it's a slight bit sharper. And look at the color here, this really pops, and they both did excellent job here. I'm focused on that Pepsi sign, and there's the Tamron, which I still think that is a slight bit sharper. And that color blue is almost perfectly the same on both of them. Here's back to the Sony, and you're going to see how much warmer the Tamron is on this. That just warmed right up there, a little bit warmer. I kind of prefer the warmness, but you do get that extra 50mm zoom. Okay, here's the Sony around 302mm. Nice looking, and then the Tamron, which I think is a slight bit sharper, slight bit warmer color. Could go with either one of them on that. They're both very sharp lenses. One's really no better than the other for sharpness. Maybe the Tamron edges it out a little bit. And now here's the Sony on another shot here. And we're going to go to the Tamron, and I really like this Tamron. The contrast is quite a bit better. The blacks are a little bit darker, but the background blur on the Sony is maybe just slightly better, but I would still prefer the Tamron with that better contrast. What do you think? Now here's the Sony at 350mm. so you can see compared to the Tamron at 300 millimeters some signs. Both of them are equally as sharp, it looks like to me. Now we're going to put them side by side. Sony at 350, Tamron at 300. What do you think? Now I'll get into some more side-by-side images so you can see a little bit of both of them side by side. Sony at 302, Tamron at 300 millimeter. Slightly different color between them. Now this really shows the advantage of the Tamron if you're like traveling. That wideness, you can't beat that. Now here's the Sony, probably around 302 or so. And coming up, the Tamron. Same type of shot, standing in the same exact spot. There's no difference in a whole lot of them there. Here's all three of them. The Sony at 299 millimeter, Tamron at 300 millimeter, and one from the Sony at 350 millimeter. To really show you what they look like, there's not a whole lot of difference here. Even the color of blue is so similar, almost perfectly the same. Now here's another one from the Sony at 70 millimeter versus the Tamron at 18 millimeter. If you need that wide look, you got to go with the Tamron. But if you want that extra 50 millimeter zoom, you go with the Sony. Now here's the Sony again at 70 and the Tamron again at 18 millimeter. Even at 18 millimeter, the Tamron is very sharp. Now here it's a little bit weird. I'm shooting this plant and the Sony, it just could not focus on it hardly at all. I had to keep moving further back and further back. I finally got it. There's the Sony. But it had to go quite a ways back versus the Tamron. I was able to get a little bit closer. Now on the Tamron here, this looks cooler. Now on the Sony here, I had to be like 1.5 to 2 feet back to be able to get that same shot. And it had a hard time focusing where the Tamron snapped into focus immediately. Now I'm looking, see that building across the way? That's a restaurant. I'm going to shoot some photos of that with both cameras, and side by side, Sony at 299, the Tamron at 300 millimeter. I prefer the look of the Tamron here, the warmness, and it's also just as sharp. And here's one from the Sony at 350 of a boat over there, Tamron at 300 millimeter. If you need that extra 50 millimeter, then you got to go with the Sony. Now here, I thought the color was so much the same here between the two. It was quite amazing. Now on this one, the Sony would not focus on this at all. I had to focus on the bottom of the plant and slowly focus going up till I got it. The Tamron nailed it instantly. I'm not sure what was going on, but the Sony just could not focus on these thin parts of this plant whatsoever until I focused on up to catch it up. And now we got 350 millimeter from the Sony versus 300 millimeter from the Tamron. And now I'm going to take the Tamron that was 300 millimeter and I upsized it to match the 350 look of the Sony. And actually, to me, the Tamron is actually slightly sharper, even upsized that much. Now I want to show you how I'm carrying these cameras around. I use a lot of Think Tank camera gear, and these are both Think Tank bags. What's neat about them is, like you can see the bottom of this bag there, it extends down longer. Well, that part can be zipped up and pushed in, and the bag on the other side is what it looks like zipped up and pushed in. Now the Tamron can fit in this smaller part without the extended part being, extended out, which makes it a little bit more convenient and easier to carry around. I actually have another bag as well from them. That's called a skin bag. It actually fits in that as well. That little bit of extra length of the Sony makes it not fit. You have to use that extended part. Now let's get into some video. Here's the Tamron at 300 millimeter, and I'm going to show you what the clear image zoom does when you engage that. Here's the 300 millimeter. Now let's engage the clear image zoom and see how much zoom range we get and what it looks like. It's a little shaky because I have to push the buttons on the camera. And here is with the clear image zoom range. And I tell you, that looks pretty darn good. I need a better tripod. It's a little shaky. I actually have a remote that plugs into the side of the camera now that can control this, so it's not going to be this shaky. But this is what it was for this test. I'm going to zoom back out. That's back to the 300 millimeter. You get an extra 1.5% of zoom. Now here's another test, 300 millimeter, zooming in with the clear image zoom. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Okay, back out. Am I backing out? Oh, and I'm going to chase a boat here. Now I'm zoomed all the way in with clear image zoom right there. Trying to track this boat with this tripod that doesn't pan very well. And now I'm zooming. I think I'm going to zoom out here. Yeah, I'm zooming out with the clear image zoom all the way to the 300 millimeter range. It zooms in nice and smooth. Now I'm going to zoom back in as the boat's driving away. So you get that zoom range, and with that clear image zoom, controlling it from the camera, I'm zooming back out right there, it can be nice and smooth and easy, like using a camcorder. Now we're going to go to the Sony at 350 millimeter, and we're going to engage the clear image zoom. It was even more bumpy for some reason on this lens. You see all those people eating at the restaurant. This is that restaurant across the lake there, or pond or canal. And there it is with the clear image zoom, zoomed all the way in. And now we're going to go to that boat like I did on the other one. This is at 350 millimeter. And now here comes the zoom. Clear image zoom, zooming in. Gives you that nice smooth zoom. If I could just hold this camera still on the tripod. Actually, at the video near the end coming up, I'm using this a lot. Now here they both are side by side. You can see the zoom range you're getting, the extra zoom. They're not composed upright, just equally. Now, what lens did I send back, and what lens did I keep? Let's take a look and see. The Tamron 18 to 300 millimeter. The keeper for me. Why? The image quality. The image quality from it, I think, is fantastic. And the sharpness is also very sharp. Many times I thought it was sharper than the Sony. Then the zoom range. A lot of times I'm going to be using this lens for when I'm traveling, and to get to 18 to 300 range versus 70 to 350, that's a much wider range for me. I can get those wide shots in the 18 in, I can get the medium shots in the 70 range, I can go into the 50 millimeter range, and I can go all the way to 300. Also, the difference between the 300 millimeter and the 350 to me was really not that big of a deal. Also, the color and contrast I thought were better on the Tamron, at least to my liking. It's also a little bit smaller. It fits in both of my camera bags that go on me a lot easier, and it cost a lot less. For the price, I feel the Tamron is a bargain. It's a much lower price than the Sony. Now, coming up, I'm going to show some video I shot at a festival, and I'm going to be using the Tamron 18 to 300 millimeter lens, and I'm going to be zooming in a lot using clear image zoom. And I'm going to show a couple of different bands. This was a really fun festival to shoot at. I had a lot of fun, and the Tamron did, I think, fantastic. I'm on a tripod. I'm not using my clear image zoom remote on this yet, so it can be a little shaky here and there, but for what it is, I think you're going to like it. Here we go. This is a tribute band.
I want to tell you a story about a woman I
using
know.
The Tamron 18 to 300.
When it comes to Devin,
and I'm using the Sony clear image zoom on the a6700 a lot here.
She ain't exactly small.
And I am way, way back out there in the audience, over by the soundboard.
You can say she's got it all. Show me those hands.
It was a lot of fun to shoot. It was a 4-day festival. I went to 3 of the days.
Are you ready to rap?
Little lead guitar solo. Now that's with the clear image zoom all the way in. And for this, I'm using zone focus. And I have the zone focus pushed up to the top in the center. That way it won't hit any of the audience's head and it refocus on them. Another tribute band. Now here you can see how far back I am. I'm back there by the soundboard, under some scaffolding. Right above me is the guy running a spotlight. Zoom back in and boom! Look how quick that Tamron focuses even that far back in that low light. I think the color, the contrast, and the sharpness of this Tamron lens is fantastic. I'm happy with it. There's another fun band. They did a little mix of a lot of things. Disco, funk. Now see, that was the clear image zoom, just zooming out. So I zoomed the camera in to, fit the person right in the frame there, and then I can zoom in with the clear image zoom. Now here I'm zoomed out, and then zoom in manually. And that focus just picks it up right away. A little jerky when you manually zoom in and out. I'm trying to frame them up here. It's amazing what you can see on stage and what's going on, that out in the audience you can't see any of this this far back. Now see, the focus is not focusing on any of the people in the front. By using the zone into the center, push to the top, I'm only getting the band in focus. Now this was another day at a different stage. They had two different stages set up. This is a smaller stage area. Very energetic band. Once again, using zone focus to push to the center and the top, so I don't get any of those people's heads in focus that are dancing in front. Even when people walk by right in front of my camera, I'm not losing focus at all. I'm really liking this Sony a6700 Tamron. Combined with this Tamron 18-300, it's great for this. This is zoomed in all the way. This is with the clear image zoom. That little zoom out using the clear image zoom. Now manual zoom out, a little jerky. Hoping this lens will loosen up a little bit over time.
Swinging and swinging.
Now this was another night on this same smaller stage. Great example of what the Tamron 18-300 can do. Shooting way far in the back.
Here we go.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe to my channel. I'll have a lot more videos coming out soon. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope this helped to make a decision for you whether you want that extra 50mm zoom range or do you want the extra 18 to 70mm zoom range. For me, as you can see, I went with the Tamron. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take us on out, buddy.